Thank you guys so much for coming to the Community Science and Seminar Series sponsored by Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. PNNL is stewarded by the Department of Energy's Office of Science and has been operated by Battelle since 1965. Some of you may know this, but PNNL is one of 17 national labs. We're one of DOE's multi-program labs, meaning we take on work to support all of the missions of the U.S. Department of Energy: energy, the environment, fundamental science, and national security. We employ more than 4,300 people, roughly 94% of those working here in Washington State for you. We take our responsibility to you, the taxpayers, seriously. You've invested more than $1 billion in us, and we have a commitment to deliver. Because we're a multi-program lab, we do a lot of impressive research, and we're really passionate about it. PNNL is proud to have world-renowned experts from a broad range of scientific disciplines dedicated to advancing scientific understanding and solving national challenges related to energy, our environment, and national security right here in your own community. We're excited to share what we do with you, and we don't just work on problems. We're seeking to transform the world in what we want our science and technology to inspire and enable the world to live prosperously, safely, and securely. As we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Battelle's partnership with the Department of Energy and the impact that we've had addressing problems critical to both our nation and our community, we are thankful for the support of our local community. Tonight, Gary Spanner will give a presentation titled Economic Impact of Battelle and Pacific Northwest National Laboratory on the Tri-Cities area. Before I give a proper introduction, I do have a couple of housekeeping items. Of course, if you could silence your cell phones or put them on vibrate, we very much appreciate that. Also at the back of the room, I've got a couple surveys to fill out. If you wouldn't mind stopping by and filling out one of those, we'd appreciate it. As well as I've got some Share Your Stories card. With it being our 50th anniversary this year, we'd love for you guys to hop on the website, share any stories that you might have with the laboratory. So now I'm pleased to introduce to you Gary Spanner. As the manager of the Economic Development Office, Gary's role is to apply Pacific Northwest National Laboratory's technological resources to help boost the economy of the nation and the region. Gary serves as the first point of contact for small businesses that wish to collaborate with PNNL through a variety of mechanisms. He has worked in economic development full-time for 20 years. Gary and his team have won a number of national and local awards for their work, including the Sam Volpentest Entrepreneurship Leadership Award, a 2007 Tibbetts Award, the Columbia Basin College Outstanding Alumnus Award, and a Silver Hammer Award from Vice President Al Gore. He is the lead and co-author of more than 40 publications. Dr. Spanner holds a BS from Washington State University, an MBA from the University of Washington, a PhD from Arizona State University, and is an adjunct professor of technology and entrepreneurship at WSU. He is also certified economic developer and formerly a licensed professional engineer. With that, please help me welcome Gary Spanner.
Thanks, Brandi. So you gave my speech for me, so we can all go home now. All right, now do I get rid of that? Get the space bar. There you go. This is gonna have to reboot. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm actually honored to tell this story. I'm proud and honored to tell this story tonight about Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. It's, as Brandi mentioned, a story that spans some 50 years of scientific excellence and community involvement here in the Tri-Cities. I'm really happy to tell you about it. So what I'll do first, I will describe the impact that Pacific Northwest National Lab and Battelle have had on the community. And tonight I will explain the difference between Battelle and PNNL for those that don't know, so that'll be worth it just to find out what that means. And then I'm also going to show some examples throughout my presentation of the things I'm talking about. And who said it's going to go an hour tonight? It's not, I don't think. I'll stay that long if you want, but I should be done well before then, so we'll have time for questions at the end, all right? Yeah, that announcement. There we go. So before I can explain PNNL, I really do need to introduce Battelle briefly. And Gordon Battelle is an Ohio industrialist that got the notion in his head, and this is pretty radical back in the 20s, that if the U.S. improves its R&D, it'll improve its competitiveness. So in his will, he specified that this nonprofit institute, the Battelle Memorial Institute, be started to help serve mankind through research and education. And Battelle is a 501c3, which a lot of people don't realize when they complain about the profits we make. We don't make profits, we're a nonprofit. Battelle opened its doors, and Gordon died unexpectedly at the age of 40. And so Battelle opened its doors a few years later, October 3rd of 1929. So anybody remember what happened about that time? Maybe you don't remember. Do you know what happened? So the stock market crashed 3 weeks later, right? And so it's really a miracle that the Institute survived it all. And Battelle is now the world's largest contract R&D outfit. And I'm not going to say too much about Battelle anymore, but I will say that we do about $6.2 billion in total revenue per year. And we operate about half a dozen labs for the Department of Energy, and you can see they're scattered all across the country. And as Brandi mentioned, PNNL has been operated by Battelle since 1965, so it's a 50-year history. And I will say that when this, and yeah, I'm going to tell you how old I am. So when I was 11 years old and all this happened, and Battelle got to town, it was this palpable change. I mean, up to this point, if you lived in the Tri-City, especially if you lived in Richland, your dad went to work past this really intimidating-looking gate, and whatever happened back there, you didn't know. And Battelle shows up. They build these neat new labs. They've got an auditorium surrounded by ponds and not a single fence in the whole property. And so this was just an entirely different, really, environment. It was just obvious. I'm an 11-year-old, and I could see that. So at PNNL, we work, as Brandi said, to work on very difficult problems in environment, energy, and national homeland security. Another aspect of our laboratory is that we tend to work in interdisciplinary teams. So it kind of differentiates us from universities to a certain degree, because it's pretty rare to work on a project that has all one discipline in it. As you can see on the map, we've got 4 office locations, well 5, the 5th one's not shown, but our biggest operation is obviously here in Richland. We have about 70 people over in Sequim, probably at our Marine Sciences Laboratory, another 50 or 60 in Seattle on Dexter Avenue now, and then I think 30 or 40 down in Portland. That one seems to go up and down a bit. And then the one that's not shown here, where I was until last night, our Washington, D.C. office. And it's like, they asked Willie Sutton, why do you rob banks? Well, because that's where the money is. Well, why do you have an office in Washington, D.C.? Guess what? That's where you meet with your clients, and that's exactly what we were doing. Speaking of which, I got to fly over with Senator Murray, and she flew back. We were on the same flight both directions. So,
who's that?
Senator Murray. So throughout this presentation, I do want to explain our values, and hopefully I'll demonstrate all 5 of them before we get through this thing tonight. But that's my plan. And speaking of, one of the values is courage, obviously, and so I have got enough courage to stand up here and talk to you. So mark that. That's one. Okay, got the courage down. Battelle's, or PNNL's mission has 4 components to it, really. First of all, as a national lab, we're fundamentally trying to strengthen the U.S. scientific competitiveness and the foundations for innovation. We're also working to increase our energy independence and energy capacity of this country. We also work to reduce the environmental effects of human endeavor and develop really sustainable systems from an environmental standpoint. And then our 4th mission area is to prevent and counter acts of terrorism and weapons of mass destruction. So that's impactful stuff. So that's 3. We got courage. Oh, I haven't talked about integrity yet. I'm not going to lie to you tonight, unless it makes the joke funnier. So that's 3 values already we got, because these are pretty important missions, I believe. Oh, somebody told me that they're now. Sorry. How far off am I? There we go. So we have some 4,300 staff members in total. About 1,000 of us have PhDs, so it's a lot like a university without the football team. And if you walk on our campus, you feel that that's what it is, especially during the summer. We have 300 some students on campus during the summer, probably, interning and doing other jobs like that. We do about, as Brandi mentioned, $1 billion in R&D per year, which makes us almost as big as University of Washington, rather, in research volume. They're a little bit bigger than us. They passed us maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We've generated some 2,300 U.S. patents over the years, which actually is more than the University of Washington has. And an easy way to remember this is that laboratory, we generate an invention disclosure per working day and a patent per week on average. So that gives you some notion of the intellectual property generation out there. And if you know how to read the pie charts and you know what's really hidden in there, you can see that about 96% of our work is federally funded. We have about 4% that's privately funded, but most of it's federally funded. And then also, if you're clever on how to read this chart, over half of our work nowadays is homeland and national security work, which is really a big shift from years ago. In fact, 20 years ago, our lab director at the time proclaimed us the environmental lab. And then talked to Willie Sutton and found out that we're a Homeland National Security lab. So as taxpayers, you have every right to wonder where did my $1 billion a year go. So I'm going to tell you where some of it went. First, I'd like to talk about compact disc technology. So back in the 70s, one of our researchers had a lot of data to deal with. He was a music enthusiast, and he got the idea of recording and playing back information in the form of pits and bumps using the laser. So we generated some 30 fundamental patents behind compact disc technology. We licensed that to a small outfit in Canada. They sub-licensed to Sony and Philips, and then the whole compact disc industry and the DVD industry and all that began to happen. The AOL joke's getting old, right? I mean, you guys don't get discs from AOL anymore, do you? But for a while, you could thank us for the AOL disc every other week, or I was up there sounding them. Another thing on this slide is the whole holography. So this illustrates, yeah, that's it. It's the, the bird that flaps its wing on your credit card. And I remember when I was probably 14 years old, about 1968 or so, they had an open house. Which, again, this is really unusual to have an open house at this federal facility. We got to go to PNNL. And one of the things they showed us was this chess set floating in space. And this is a very, very early demonstration of holography. I'll never forget that. I thought, this is pretty cool. And then from that fact, a couple of these other inventions here we're going to talk about came from there, but not the next one. Oh yeah, I'm a gearhead. Brandi didn't mention that, but I do like cars and boats and whatnot. So one of the things we developed with General Motors is a new way of forming aluminum sheet. It uses one-sided tooling. It's faster, less expensive. You can make more complex parts. And they're also lighter weight. We called it superplastic forming, and we renamed it a few years ago, and I don't even know what the new name is. But anyhow, every Malibu Max on the road has a lift gate made by this process. And the part count went from, I think, 12 to 2 parts on that lift gate by doing it this way. And another part of our culture that's not in our values, maybe integrity is part of that. We don't tend to talk about what we do for our private clients. And so I can tell you that there are other GM cars on the road that use superplastic form parts, but I'm not at liberty to tell you which cars and which parts. But there's, I think, at least a dozen of them, something like that. And then remember I told you about holography early on. Well, we started out working on optical holography with lasers, and then we figured out how to do it with acoustics, that's acoustic holography, and then we figured out how to do it with radar, that's millimeter wave holography, and that became the whole body scanners you see in a lot of airports now. And so this is in fact I got to this lesson on the way home, the PNNL salute, right? So stand on the yellow marks and hands together, okay, you're good. So that's the PNNL, and those things have been installed, several hundred airports now. I've got that system installed. We license it to a small outfit, and then they license it to a bigger outfit, and it's, turns out in this case, there's concern about privacy issues in this particular medium for recording or searching for contraband. You can kind of cartoonize the image, if you will. So it ends up being a lot more user-friendly, or at least customer-friendly, because you just see an outline. If there's a weapon there, the outline's drawn of the weapon. You're not seeing any anatomy or anything, so it's a lot better deal. And then finally, something we haven't quite commercialized yet, but we're getting pretty close, is a coating for screens so you can make flexible LCD, or not LCD, LED screens. And guess what? I would argue that there's creativity in all this, right? So we're up to 4 out of 5 now on our values. We're doing a good job there. So if we're keeping track, we're almost there.
You're just doing the coatings for the digital displays?
Yeah. But the coating enables, I say coating, it's more layering. In fact, it's organic LEDs is what they are. So it allows the screen to be flexible itself. So now I'd like to talk about part of how we make this economic impact happen from our laboratory is through some of these programs that are in my office for the most part. So I have a program called Technology Assistance Program where if a small business requests our help, I can fund our staff to spend up to about a staff week providing help at no charge to small businesses. And I'm not going to go into detail on any of these particular items on this slide. I will tell you that on the the third bullet down, if you have a career at PNNL, to a certain degree, it's because you know how to get your hands on funding from the federal government or state government or whatever. So we also help businesses with that from time to time, either by collaborating with them or pointing to the right sources of funding, that sort of thing. We also put out something you're welcome to subscribe to for free, the Tri-Cities Tech Business Update newsletter. You can get that from my website, which is at the bottom of the slide. And so every month we send out a newsletter about happenings in the tech sector of the Tri-Cities, contract wins, new technology developments. We have a couple items for big things that came out of our lab that month, that sort of thing. And if you want to get the history I'm a pack rat in the real world and the virtual world, and so I don't throw anything away. So all our back issues are available on my website as well. So you can see the technological history of the Tri-Cities for the last 15 years. Excuse me. We also offer, this is technology transfer mechanisms, licensing, and I'll have examples a lot later to show you. A couple of new things, the Labcorp Program. This is a DOE-funded program to teach lab staff nationwide how to be entrepreneurs, or at least think like entrepreneurs. Uses something called the Lean Startup methodology, which is all about listening to your customers before you spend too much time in the laboratory. So we have 4 teams now that are about to go through that training. That'll start in October. And then the reason I was in DC this week is for the Small Business Voucher Program. I told you about Technology Assistance, which is a week of help. The voucher program is going to be like 25 times that. So small business will be able to get up to about 9 months of free help from labs nationwide. And that'll kick off sometime this fall. Proprietary research. I already told you that 96% of our work is federal, while the rest of it, for the most part, is private research, and we do more of that than any other laboratory. We have another local program, the Mentor-Protege Program. In this program, we pair young entrepreneurs with more experienced entrepreneurs in town. As a national lab, our role is technology, it's not necessarily business, so if we pair them that way, then we can let these local experienced entrepreneurs help the younger ones. It's been a successful program. Mostly we do the matchmaking there. We have an entrepreneur support database, so if you're trying to start a business or you have a small business and you don't know where to turn for help, go to my database, and the people my age in this room will get a kick out of this. That thing started as a WordPerfect document in hard copy 19 years ago, and now of course it's on the web. When I have time, and it hasn't been much lately, I also write an economic development column in the Tri-City Herald. And the purpose of this column really is to help steer the ship, if you will. So say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there's a program called what was it called? Yeah, foreign direct investment. Anyhow, it's the EB5 program. Anyhow, it's a way to get foreign investment in your community. And I got kind of excited about that, so I wrote a couple columns about it, and that generated enough interest that finally a local developer got enthused and set up an EB5 district here. So that's an example of kinds of things we do in that column when we get the chance. And by the way, as a pack rat, those back issues are all on my website also. So if you want to see whatever we've written about economic development the last 15 years, it's there. We also put on various events and such. And in fact, this is a good example of that, our seminar series. And then the last thing we'll talk about tonight is our Tech Entrepreneurship, University Tech Entrepreneurship Program. And this is a program in which we make our technologies available to teams of graduate students at various universities. And in fact, it's too bad that sense of humor is not one of our values, because this cracks me up. So I teach at WSU, as Brandi mentioned. 4 out of the last 6 years, my students have taken a PNNL technology, entered business plan competitions, and made more money in that class than I did. And they go, Dr. Spann, we got $6,000. I'm going, yeah, I'm really happy for you. But anyhow, humor ought to be one of our values. So I just briefly covered those programs. If you want more details, this is actually a map to my website, and there is a stack of them back in the back. So feel free to grab one of those if you want to look at more details. And then, this is just a brief slide of some things we've accomplished in economic development over the years. We've been able to identify some 170 businesses with their technological management roots at our laboratory, including, who's making the nuclear fuel now? I guess it's Ariba still, isn't it? But I think changes names fast enough. Anyhow, so Ariba's, that was actually a PNNL spinoff to a large degree back in the 60s. We've identified some 1,500 local jobs that have resulted from our efforts. Nationwide, it's like 3,000 total jobs. We've offered 1,200 weeks, more than 1,200 weeks now, of technology assistance through that particular program over the years. And about 40 of those projects tend to be our local. And there's kind of a saying in the economic development world or tech transfer world that tech transfer is a contact sport, and it's true. So we advertise these things and we outreach for these programs nationwide, but they tend to be local participants. And then in the licensing area, we've got some 47 technology licenses for local companies, and there are for regional companies, and 31 of those are local. So I'd like to show you some examples of what we've done in this area. Upper left of this screen is IsoRay, which I'm sure you've all heard of. This is a company out in North Richmond that makes, call them, grain or rice size little titanium capsules with cesium-131 in them for treating various types of cancer. And our role in this is their key scientist is a former staff member of ours. He left the lab, in fact, to go to this company. And we developed the process for separating the cesium from the other elements to get them into these capsules. We also helped them with the welding process for the capsules and a couple other things through the Technology Assistance Program. Top right is an outfit called Intech. Integrated Environmental Technology is what it used to be there at the Richland Airport. And this is a company that took a technology from our lab and another one from MIT. Collaboration right there. See another collaboration example. From MIT, they got a plasma technology. From our lab, they got a melting technology. And they developed a system that if you put waste with some organic compound in the top or component in the top, the plasma breaks down the organic compound or component and puts out a gas that's pretty rich in hydrogen out the top, and then the rest of it falls in the bottom, and the melting technology turns into something that looks kind of like obsidian. So it's a very stable waste form. So it reduces the waste volume by about 90%. You can use this obsidian for ground, for pavement, or whatever you want. And the gas that comes off the top actually has more energy than it takes to run the process. So you can get rid of your waste, reduce the volume by 90%, and make more energy than you're using to run the thing. It's pretty cool technology. Lower left is one of my current favorites, Carbitex. Local guy here was working at, well, he never says where he works. I guess I'll keep it secret too. But anyhow, he's working at a local car company. And he got the idea that if he could make carbon fiber flexible, then you could use it like a fabric. Because if you ever touch carbon fiber when it's dry, if you just touch it, it just flakes apart. But he got the notion if we could somehow make it an actual fabric, then you could come up with new applications for it. And he came to the laboratory to provide technology assistance to help him figure out what coatings and what processes would make this work. And sure enough, working with him, we came up with a solution. And so he's making, out near Finley, making sheets and sheets of this carbon fiber fabric. And in fact, Toomey Luggage, which is a high-end luggage company, is buying a lot of this material from now. They've got a specific line of luggage made out of carbon fiber. The wallet's $250, I think, so it's really high-end stuff. And then finally, the bottom right on this slide is an outfit called Unibest, which used to be in the Tri-Cities. They're sort of in Walla Walla now, but they're also kind of spread around. But this is a company that has an ion exchange resin that, in fact, you can just barely see that. Yeah, it's that thing on the corner that's round with a arrow pointing off of it. It's actually a sphere about the size of a large marble made out of metal screen. In fact, they've changed the configuration since then. But it's got these ion exchange resins in them. You go bury them in your field for an hour or two, and you take them to the lab and find out what's in it, and you can tell what nutrients are actually available to the plant roots at that time, at that location. And they've come up with a lot of uses for that technology since then, but it's been a pretty good program, and we've helped them with technology assistance over several years. So this slide may look a bit self-serving, but you know, scientific credibility is the coin of the realm if you're in our line of work. If you're doing R&D work, your credibility is everything. So we have this 50-year history of scientific accomplishment. As a result of that, in 2014 alone, we had 1,120 publications, peer-reviewed publications. The second bullet's really important. So among all the publications out there in the world, we're in the top 1% that are cited in other researchers' work in, 10 fields now. So what this means is, in these 10 fields, 99% of these researchers are citing our work when they're moving forward. So they're following our lead. We won some 93 R&D 100 awards, and these are for, oh, here's impact again. Oh, we're going to nail that one, aren't we? So 90 of these inventions that have impact, that's R&D 100 awards. Federal Lab Consortium awards, these are when you get your invention deployed. If you commercialize it somehow, get it on the market, get it on a shelf at Home Depot, whatever you do, then you can win an award for that. 6 E.O. Lawrence Awards, which for nuclear advances of various sorts. 4 Discover Magazine Awards, and 4 Presidential Early Career Awards. And again, the point of all these awards is it builds our credibility, and that makes it easier, make more amenable for us to develop build our portfolio of work. Excuse me. So now I'd like to go into the economic impacts. I hope you like numbers, because I think the next 3 slides are all numbers. But so we performed an analysis of our impact last year, probably when we did the work, and we found that we've got 1.3 billion in total economic output just from our payroll and goods and purchases, or goods and services we purchase, which really means 6,800 jobs. And then if you look at our impact from healthcare costs, spin-off companies, visitors, and retirees that are in Washington, that's another 1.2 billion, so another 6,400 jobs. So in the state, we're having a pretty big impact. We found out that 108 of our spin-off companies are still operating, or roots companies really, so that's pretty good. And 76 of those are in Washington state. And then we also did $324,000 worth of in-kind support for STEM education, which I'll go into more detail later. STEM being science, technology, engineering, mathematics education. Now, I'm the generation that still likes paper, right? So if you want a summary of what I've talked about in the economic area, this flyer's in the back of the room also. You can grab one of those if you like. Now we got some real numbers here. Okay. So our payroll is $400 million a year, and as I said, 96% that's federally funded, so thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Average annual wage is $91,000 out at the laboratory, and that's like double what the local average wage is. And that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. Because even if you work in a restaurant, if you're a waiter in a restaurant, you'd rather be a waiter in a restaurant where everybody's making $91,000 a year than one where they're making $50,000 a year, right? Because they'll spend more money in your restaurant. So this is actually very good to the economy that we do pay high wages. And we don't do it just because we love ourselves, we do it because that's what the market demands. Our staff could go anywhere to work worldwide, really, if they wanted to, so we just need to be competitive in that regard. Benefits were $136 million. That's taxpayer funded, so I thank you again for that. Our state and local taxes were $23 million. That was 2013, I think. Sales and use taxes, $317,000. Property and leasehold taxes, nearly $1 million. Construction renovation, $19 million worth of construction out there. We've added a building per year now for the last 5 or 6 years. And we purchased about $305 million worth of goods and services, and $50 million of that almost was within the state at least. And the next statistic just blows me away, because we've always tried to collect this. How many people are coming to the lab and how long are they staying? It's very difficult to gather that data. But we found out it's 200,000 visitor days in a year, which equates to $31 million in tourism spending. So we're doing our bit to keep the hotels and the restaurants happy around here too. And another cool thing is our PNNL retirees earn some $89 million in pension and Social Security benefits. And you know, this is just, for whatever reason, in fact I see several of our retirees in the room today, our retirees tend to stay in the Tri-Cities, and I like to think it's partly because of what Battelle and PNNL do to make this a better place to live. So, if your numbers junk even more so than I might be, there is a full report on this, which I only brought one of these, and it's not to give away, I apologize for that. But, and it is number 23925. So you can get this whole report online, because this, I only had, 8 or 10 numbers out of here, but it's a pretty elaborate explanation of our economic impact. So PNNL is committed to maintaining a high quality of life in the Tri-Cities, maintaining and improving, really. So this is kind of a collage to show you some of the things we do. The top left is our STEM education efforts. Again, science, technology, engineering, mathematics education. A lot of having a successful lab is raising people that want to go into those fields and stay in town or move to town and work in that area. And it's not just about Delta High School. We have a number of programs in this area, and we work in robotics competitions and the science fair and all that stuff. We got a lot of our staff that volunteer for that every year. The middle top picture shows WSU Tri-Cities, and Brandi mentioned I'm on the faculty out there. We're some 200 of us are on the faculty at WSU, and it's been that way ever since that campus, even when it was a Joint Center for Graduate Study years and years ago. Top left is Startup Weekend. This is an international program where people come together for 2.5 days to try to see how far they can get towards starting a business. Well, we instigated that in the Tri-Cities, and now the younger entrepreneurs run the thing pretty much, but it came out of our lab, or came out of our efforts to start with. And we've run that 3 times now, and we've had 4 or 5 startup companies that are still going out of that program, so that's been pretty cool. Another photo of Intech there, which I already talked about. And then lower left is the Reach Museum. You know, we've always felt it's important to educate people about what goes on in the technical and the historical parts of the Tri-Cities, so we're really the lead donor on that. And we have a program called Team Battelle, where if a staff member wants to organize some sort of philanthropic effort, you can register with the Team Battelle website, and then you can recruit employees to help you out, and maybe Battelle will chip in some money. So that's what's illustrated in those bottom 2 photos. And I will tell you that I just started my own Team Battelle project the other day, because I'm on the board at the Children's Reading Foundation in Mid-Columbia, and I said, what are you guys doing about STEM books? Because the purpose of that is to get kids to read between the ages of 2 and 7, get them hooked on reading early, and then they'll stick with it for life is the premise. And I said, what are you doing about STEM? They go, oh, we don't think there's STEM books for kids. And I go, really? I think there are. So I started this Team Battelle project, and we're going to work to find the right STEM books. I remember when I was a kid, some of my favorite books were There was a steam shovel book I'll never forget. And, stuff like that. That's what got me interested in engineering in the first place. So I want to make sure we can help the later generations move into that as well. So this talks specifically mostly about what Battelle does in the community. And so Battelle itself has, well, last year they donated $1 million locally to charitable contributions, or in 2013 rather, but since they came to town in 1965, it's $25 million now. And a community the size of the Tri-Cities, $25 million, that's real money. We've put $3.9 million into Delta High School. Clearly that's our biggest STEM effort. Not all cash, but $1.5 million of that's been cash. We also have a number of STEM programs, and these are actually more laboratory. These are mostly government-funded programs for STEM education, but they reached 2,900 participants in 2013 alone. So 2,900 students, that's a pretty good reach there. We counted 44,000 volunteer hours for 56 organizations in 2014, and I'm sure that number is lower. I'm sure we can't count all the volunteering we do at our laboratory. Our staff, without any prodding from PNNL or Battelle, we donated $250,000 to United Way each year. And our cumulative in the last 10 years in volunteering is over 225,000 hours. Which, by the way, that's just, it's not a value. This volunteering is not necessarily a value at our lab, but it's certainly part of our culture. And I wasn't much of a volunteer when I started there, but the guy next to you and the girl next to you or whatever, and they're all volunteering the time, you kind of get the sense, I guess maybe I ought to do that too. So it just ends up being part of our culture. Hey, you'll get to value number 5. Oh, glad we already talked about it. So here's some examples. As much as we try to do at this laboratory to be good for the community, we don't do any of it alone. Very little of it do we do alone. In fact, I can't think of anything. So we cooperate with TRIDEC and the Chamber of Commerce and the Research District and WSU Tri-Cities, as I mentioned. LASER is one of our larger programs for STEM education. And on this slide, there are half a dozen organizations on this slide that we co-founded. So not only do we participate, if we see a need, we try to make it happen. In fact, the Washington Technology Industry Association is a good example of that. So 25 years ago, when software was a pretty new industry in this state, some of our staff figured out, along with people in Seattle, we really need to have some kind of organization to help grow this sector. So we started what was called the Software Alliance initially. It's had a couple names since then. Now it's the Washington Technology Industry Association, so we're in the founding organization, or founders of that. How are we doing for time? I promised it wouldn't be an hour. We're in good shape. So this slide has a list of collaboration. Feel free to read that if you'd like. But is this slide set going to be posted on a web somewhere, by the way?
Okay. You can post it on your website.
We'll post it on my website, which was on that one slide, pnl.gov/edo. And then you're putting this thing on the web people can watch it on YouTube, is that it?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
And they're watching you live right now.
Ooh, look out. So anyhow, they are hard of something to know. So I get the point I want to make here is that PNNL is a key contributor to issues that matter in the Northwest. Border, port, cybersecurity. I mean, we've got how many border crossings in the north part of our state? We've got at least half a dozen seaports in the state. And of course, cybersecurity is a huge issue with the huge software sector, and our lab is working hard in those areas. Clean energy is obviously something the state cares about. We're working in that area. Environment's always been part of our charge because it's been kind of how we started at Hanford. To a certain degree was tracking the environmental effects there. We work in ag and climate change. I mean, whether you believe in climate change or not, that it's coming and it's going to affect how things are done, and so we're working to try to get in front of that a little bit. And then next generation talent STEM education, I've shown you numerous examples of that. So the point I'm trying to make is that we are working in issues of great importance in the Northwest. In our free time, we got lots of that, don't we? So we're on a lot of boards. Backward chairs of lots of boards. United Way, TRIDEC, Research District, Reach Interpretive Center. One of the cool ones on here, the Association for the Advancement of Science Through Astronomy, which if you don't know that story, Battelle, PNNL used to have a telescope on top of Rattlesnake Mountain, and when that got surplus, this AAAS got together and they figured out a way to get it reinstalled on a ridge south of Kennewick, so we didn't lose that resource. And it's not that we needed it for our lab, because we're not doing work there, but it's for the students. So that's one of the ones I'm really proud of that we got involved in.